Virgin Millionaire never performed, until he hired a private chef who changed everything. He'd built a tech empire worth billions, but couldn't build a simple human connection. She came to cook his meals, not fix his life. But in his sterile penthouse kitchen, between failed soufflés and midnight conversations, two broken people discovered that intimacy isn't about expertise. It's about having the courage to be seen. By the time she taught him to taste his food, he was already learning to taste life itself. Before we begin this intimate journey, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story about unexpected love. This isn't working out. Ethan Winters didn't look up from his laptop as he spoke, fingers still flying across the keyboard. The chef, Patricia, Pauline, stood frozen in the doorway of his home office, her face cycling through confusion, hurt, and finally indignation. "I've been here exactly 1 week," she said, voice tight. "You've barely eaten anything I've made." The food was fine, still typing, still not looking. "Please leave your key with security." "Fine. I trained at Le Bernardin. My waiting list is 6 months long, and you're firing me because my food was fine." Now he did look up, grey eyes flat as Winterstone. "I said the food was fine, the problem is everything else. The talking, the questions, the attempts at conversation. I hired a chef, not a therapist." Her face flushed. "I asked if you had any allergies. After you asked about my family, my hobbies, and why I eat alone, your job was to cook, not to fix me. I'm not broken." The lie tasted bitter, but he'd been telling it so long it came automatically. She grabbed her knife roll with shaking hands. "You know what? You're right. You're not broken. You're just empty. Good luck finding someone willing to cook for a ghost." The door slammed. Ethan returned to his screen, adding another line to the spreadsheet. "Chef number 6, P. Hoffman, 7 days, too invasive." His assistant would find another one, they always did, and in a week or two he'd be updating the spreadsheet again. The cycle was as predictable as his profit margins and about as satisfying. The penthouse fell back into silence. 3,200 square feet of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle, decorated by someone who'd never asked his opinion beyond modern or traditional. He'd built this empire from nothing, could buy anything, go anywhere. Yet he ate microwaved meals standing over the sink and couldn't remember the last time food had actual flavor. His phone buzzed. Martin, his assistant. "7th time in 6 months, sir. Perhaps we should reconsider the requirements." Ethan typed back, "Same requirements. No questions. No conversation beyond meal planning. No attempts at friendship." "Understood. I have 3 candidates. Shall I schedule interviews?" "Just send the best one, tomorrow, 6 p.m. He closed the laptop, walked to the kitchen that looked like a magazine spread and had about as much warmth. The refrigerator hummed, full of precisely labeled containers he'd never open. Another chef's attempts at connection through food, wasted. His reflection caught in the stainless steel. 34 years old, successful beyond measure, and so profoundly alone that even his echo had given up responding. But alone was safe. Alone was controlled. Alone meant no one could see the truth that Ethan Winters, who'd revolutionized data encryption and graced 40 magazine covers, was terrified of the most basic human connection. That behind the billions was a man who'd never been touched with genuine desire, never been wanted for anything beyond his wallet or his influence. Virgin. The word mocked him, archaic and shameful. Not by choice, not really. By fear. By the bone-deep certainty that anyone who got close enough to see the real him would recoil. Better to be the Ice King in his tower than the fool who tried and failed. He'd hire chef number 7. They'd last a week, maybe 2. The spreadsheet would grow, and he'd continue existing in this pristine prison of his own making, sustained by food he didn't taste and success that didn't satisfy. Tomorrow, at 6. Another stranger in his kitchen. Another inevitable disappointment. He didn't know that tomorrow at 6, Sofia Rodriguez would walk through his door and refuse to leave when he tried to scare her away. That she'd see through his walls not with pity, but with recognition. that she'd come to cook his meals and end up teaching him to feast on life itself. But tonight, Ethan Winters stood in his empty kitchen, eating takeout from a container, tasting nothing but his own loneliness. Sofia Rodriguez checked the address twice, certain she'd made a mistake. The building stretched toward the Seattle sky like a glass finger, all clean lines and intimidating wealth. The doorman had looked at her second-hand coat and canvas bag of knives with barely concealed skepticism before calling up. "Mr. Winters is expecting you. Penthouse elevator, code 3847. The elevator rose silently, her stomach dropping with each floor. She needed this job, needed it badly enough to answer an ad that specifically said, "No personal interaction required. Cook, clean, leave." Every chef she knew had warned her off. Ethan Winters went through private chefs like tissue paper. Cold, impossible, probably crazy. But the pay was triple market rate, and her savings had evaporated along with her engagement 6 months ago. Turns out planning a wedding you don't want drains both bank accounts and souls. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Her breath caught. It was like stepping into a furniture showroom. Beautiful, expensive, and utterly devoid of human warmth. No photos, no personal items, no evidence anyone actually lived here. "You're 3 minutes late," she spun toward the voice. He stood in the kitchen doorway, younger than she'd expected, early 30s, with dark hair and sharp features that would have been handsome if they held any warmth. His grey eyes assessed her like she was a spreadsheet to be analysed. "Traffic," she said, refusing to apologise further. "Should I start cooking, or did you want to interview me first?" Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. "You brought ingredients." "Hard to show you my skills without them." She moved past him into the kitchen, professional-grade everything gleaming unused. "Any allergies? Preferences? Things you hate?" "No allergies. No preferences. I eat for nutrition, not pleasure." She paused, studying him. Expensive suit that fit perfectly but somehow looked uncomfortable. Shoulders held rigid like he was bracing for attack. When was the last time someone had cooked for this man with care? "Everyone has preferences," she said, unpacking her ingredients. "What did you eat as a child? Before you decided food was just fuel?" His jaw tightened. "I believe the ad specified no personal questions." "That wasn't personal. That was menu planning." She found a cutting board, began prepping vegetables with practiced efficiency. "But fine. I'll cook. You can tell me if it meets your nutritional requirements." She expected him to leave, but he stayed in the doorway watching. Sofia had cooked for difficult clients before. Celebrities with egos, tech bros with superiority complexes, society wives who thought knowing about wine made them food critics. But none of them had radiated loneliness like this man did, even while trying so hard to appear untouchable. She worked in silence, letting her hands find their rhythm. Simple foods, nothing showy. Roasted chicken with herbs, vegetables cooked just right, fresh bread she'd brought just in case. Comfort food dressed up enough to satisfy someone who probably judged everything by its price tag. "You're not talking," he observed after 20 minutes. The ad said no personal interaction. Most people can't help themselves. They see the penthouse, Google my net worth, and suddenly want to be friends. "I don't want to be your friend, Mr. Winters." She plated the food with architectural precision. "I want to cook for you. There's a difference." She set the plate on the marble island, stepped back. He approached like it might bite, sat on one of the bar stools that looked rarely used. "You're not going to watch me eat." "Actually, I am. Not for personal reasons. I need to see if you actually taste it, or just swallow. Tells me how to adjust seasoning, portions, cooking methods." He picked up the fork like it was a weapon, took a bite, chewed mechanically. "Stop," she said. His eyes snapped to hers. "Excuse me?" "You're eating like someone's timing you, like it's a chore to get through. That's not eating, that's surviving. I don't recall hiring you for life coaching." "You didn't, but you did hire me to nourish you, and I can't do that if you won't let yourself taste." She moved around the island, standing close enough to see the tension in his jaw. One bite. Actually taste it. The rosemary, the way the chicken stays moist, how the vegetables aren't mush like whatever frozen dinners you've been eating. How do you know? Your trash was visible when I came in. Lean cuisine and protein shakes. That's not food, that's punishment. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the armor. He took another bite, slower this time. His eyes widened slightly. "Oh," he said quietly. "There you go. Flavor. Revolutionary concept." The ghost of a smile tugged at his mouth before he caught it, smoothed it away. "It's good. It's better than good, but we'll work up to accurate compliments." She returned to cleaning her prep area. "I can start Monday if you're interested. Same time each evening. I'll prep breakfast and lunch for the next day, cook dinner fresh." "You're assuming you're hired. Am I wrong?" He took another bite, actually chewing this time. "No personal questions. No attempts at conversation beyond meal planning. No fixing, you got it. You're not broken, just very specific about your requirements." She dried her hands, met his gaze directly. "I'm not here to be your friend, Mr. Winters. I'm here because you pay well and I need the money. You stay out of my personal life, I'll stay out of yours. Deal?" He studied her for a long moment. Behind the ice, she caught something else. Relief, maybe. Like he'd finally found someone who wouldn't try to save him. "Deal. Monday, 6 p.m. Any foods you actually enjoy, or should I just guess based on nutritional optimization?" That almost smile again. "Surprise me." She packed up her knives, left him sitting at the island with his half-eaten meal. At the elevator, she glanced back. He was taking another bite, eyes closed, like he was trying to remember something he'd forgotten. Everyone has preferences, she thought. Some people just need reminding that they're allowed to have them. The elevator descended, carrying her away from the strangest interview of her career. She'd cooked for him for 30 minutes and already saw more than he probably wanted. The exhaustion beneath the control, the hunger that had nothing to do with food, the way he'd looked at that simple meal like it was the first real thing he'd experienced in years. No fixing him, she reminded herself. That's not what he's paying for. But as she stepped into the Seattle evening, Sophia wondered if Ethan Winters knew that sometimes the most profound connections begin not with grand gestures, but with someone simply feeding you well and expecting nothing in return. Monday couldn't come fast enough. Monday arrived grey and drizzling, Seattle showing its typical February face. Sophia entered the penthouse at exactly 6, finding Ethan at the kitchen island, laptop open, completely absorbed in whatever empire building occupied his evenings. "Good evening, Mr. Winters." He glanced up, seemed almost surprised to see her. "You came back. Did you expect otherwise?" The last 3 didn't return after the interview. He closed the laptop, a gesture she suspected was rare. They said the environment was too sterile. She unpacked her ingredients, noting he'd actually cleared space in the refrigerator. Small progress. Sterile can be fixed. Hostile is harder. You're not hostile, just heavily fortified. That's an interesting distinction. I cook for a lot of difficult people. The hostile ones yell, make demands, treat you like furniture. The fortified ones just want to be left alone while being taken care of. I can work with fortified. She began prep work, falling into the meditation of knife on board. Tonight's menu: braised short ribs, garlic mashed potatoes, roasted Brussels sprouts with bacon, comfort food that demanded slow attention, the kind of meal that made houses smell like homes. "That smells different," he said after an hour, closing his laptop again. "Different how?" "Like my grandmother's house." The words seemed to surprise him. "I haven't thought about that in years." She wanted to ask more but remembered their deal. Instead, she focused on plating, making it restaurant beautiful but approachable. Set it before him with silverware properly placed. "Cloth napkin," she said, producing one from her bag. "The paper ones are insulting to food this good." He actually smiled. Quick, barely there, but real. "You're very serious about this." "Food is serious. It's how we stay alive. Might as well make it worth experiencing." She watched him take the first bite, saw his shoulders drop slightly as the flavors hit. Better. He was actually present, not just refueling. "Your turn," he said suddenly. "My turn?" You cooked enough for two. I assume you haven't eaten. Sit. That's not part of the arrangement, I know, but eating alone makes the food taste like obligation. Eating with someone, even in silence, makes it a meal. She hesitated, then fixed herself a plate. They ate without talking, but the silence felt different than before. Companionable rather than cold, like two people who understood that sometimes the best conversations happen without words. When they finished, she began cleaning. He stayed at the island watching her work with curious eyes. "You're efficient," he observed. "Restaurant trained. Every movement counts when you're feeding 200 people a night." "Why private service then?" She paused, hands in soapy water. "That's edging toward personal." "Call it professional curiosity. I'm trying to understand why someone with your skills would answer an ad specifically requesting no interaction." Fair question, professionally framed. Sometimes you need a break from performing. Restaurant work is theater, personality, charm, playing nice with difficult people. Your ad promised I could just cook. That sounded peaceful. "Peaceful," he repeated like he was testing the word. "Yes, I suppose it would be." She finished cleaning, packed her knives. "Tomorrow I'll prep some breakfasts you can heat and eat. Nothing complicated. But you have to promise to actually taste them, not just inhale them between meetings." "I'll try." Trying is starting. She headed for the elevator, paused. "Mr. Winters? That thing about your grandmother's house. Food is memory. The good ones are worth revisiting sometimes." The elevator closed before he could respond, but she caught his expression, surprised, maybe even grateful, like she'd handed him something he'd lost without realizing it was missing. The weeks developed a rhythm. Sophia arrived at 6, cooked while Ethan worked. They ate in companionable silence. She cleaned and left. But small things began changing. He started closing the laptop when she served dinner, began asking about ingredients, techniques, requested dishes his grandmother used to make, each one unlocking some small memory he'd share before catching himself. "She made this soup when I was sick," he said one night over chicken and dumplings. "Told me stories while I ate, about the farm where she grew up, the chickens that would chase her brothers." He stopped abruptly. "I apologize. That's not relevant." "Food without stories is just calories," Sophia said gently. "The stories are what make it nourishment." She began teaching him without making it obvious, had him smell herbs before she used them, taste sauces as they developed, understand how salt brought out sweetness and acid brightened flavors. He was a quick study, approaching cooking like code to be deciphered. "Why does this work?" he asked one evening, watching her balance flavors in a pan sauce. "Chemistry, reactions between compounds, temperature affecting molecular structure. Cooking is science you can eat." His eyes lit up, the first genuine enthusiasm she'd seen. "Show me." So she did. Taught him about Maillard reactions while searing steaks, emulsification while making hollandaise, how gluten developed in bread. He absorbed it all with intense focus, asking questions that showed he was thinking beyond the immediate lesson. "You're a natural teacher," he said one night after successfully making his first omelette. "You're a good student. Most people want to skip to the eating part. I've been skipping to the eating part my whole adult life. Never understood what I was missing." She wanted to say he'd been missing more than cooking knowledge, but that edged too close to personal territory. Instead, she guided his hands as he learned to properly dice an onion, pretending not to notice how he tensed at the contact before slowly relaxing. "Knife skills are about rhythm," she said, her hands over his guiding the rocking motion. "Like typing code. Muscle memory takes over once you trust it." "Trust," he repeated quietly. "Not my strong suit." "You trust me enough to cook your food. That's not nothing." He turned slightly, their faces closer than professional distance allowed. "You're the 7th chef in 6 months. The others, they saw a project, a problem to solve. You just see someone who needs to eat. Everyone needs to eat, Mr. Winters." "Ethan," he said suddenly, "we've been doing this for 3 weeks. You've taught me to taste my food. Least I can do is let you use my first name." "Ethan," she tested it, saw something flicker in his eyes. "But that's as personal as we get, agreed?" Agreed. But the boundary was already blurring. She learned he worked 18-hour days building security systems that protected everything from hospitals to government databases. He learned she'd trained in Paris, but came home when her father got sick. They didn't talk about the deeper things, his isolation, her broken engagement. But the truth lived in the spaces between words. One night she arrived to find him in the kitchen already, staring at a cutting board like it might attack. "I wanted to try," he said without preamble. "The soup, my grandmother's soup. But I can't remember." "Tell me what you remember. We'll figure it out together." They spent the evening reconstructing memory through taste, chicken stock simmering, vegetables chopped roughly like grandmothers do, egg noodles made from scratch because that's how it would have been done on a farm. He talked while they cooked, stories spilling out like ingredients from a long-sealed container. "She raised me after my parents died. Car accident when I was 8. Took me to this tiny town in Iowa, this ancient farmhouse. I went from having everything to having just enough, and somehow it was better. Fuller. She died my senior year of high school." Sophia stirred the soup, letting him talk. Sometimes the best thing you could do for someone was create space for their words to land. "I built all this to honor her sacrifice, told myself she'd be proud. But somewhere along the way, I forgot the actual lessons, like how she'd make extra food for anyone who needed it, how the kitchen was where problems got solved, where stories got told. I turned myself into exactly what she warned against. Successful, but empty." "You're not empty," Sophia said quietly. "Empty people don't remember their grandmother's soup." He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw past the walls to the man underneath. Brilliant, yes. Wealthy, certainly, but also achingly lonely, starved for connection he didn't know how to accept. "Taste," she said, offering him a spoonful. He did, and his eyes closed. "That's it. That's exactly it. How did you—" "Food is love, Ethan. Your grandmother knew that. You knew it once too. You just forgot for a while." Something shifted between them in that moment. The professional distance wavered, replaced by recognition. Two people who understood that nourishment came in many forms, and sometimes the hungriest people were the ones who looked most satisfied. "Stay," he said suddenly. "For dinner, not as the chef, as Sophia." She should say no, should maintain the boundaries that kept this safe. But he was looking at her with such vulnerable hope, holding out a bowl of soup that tasted like memory and possibility. "Okay," she whispered, "just dinner." They ate at the dining table he never used, candles lit because the overhead was too harsh. Talked about safe things, food, travel, books, but underneath ran a current of awareness, of two people stepping carefully towards something neither quite dared name. "I should tell you something," he said, as she prepared to leave, "about why I am the way I am, why I hired 7 chefs with the same ridiculous requirements. You don't owe me explanations. No, but I want to. You've been honest with me, fed me without trying to fix me. I owe you the same courtesy." He took a breath, looked out at the city lights. "I'm 34 years old, worth more money than I can spend in 10 lifetimes, and I've never been with anyone. Physically, emotionally, any way that counts." Sophia set down her knife roll, moved closer, but not too close. "Ethan, in high school I was the weird kid who'd lost his parents. In college I was too focused on proving myself. In business, everyone who showed interest wanted something. Funding, connections, the status of dating the youngest tech billionaire. I learned to shut it all down before it started. Better to be alone than used. But the chefs were practice, trying to let someone into my space without the risk of more. Pathetic, right? Hiring people to care for me because I don't know how to let anyone do it naturally. It's not pathetic, it's careful. There's a difference." He laughed, short and bitter. Careful is a kind word for cowardly. "Hey." She touched his arm, felt him freeze, then slowly relax. "You let me in. 3 weeks ago you ate alone standing over the sink. Tonight we shared your grandmother's soup at a table with candles. That's not cowardly. That's brave as hell. I don't know how to be what people expect. In business I can play the part, But personally, I'm 34 and don't even know how to kiss someone without calculating the probability of rejection. Maybe that's your problem. You're calculating when you should be feeling. Easy to say when you know how to feel. She thought of her ex-fiancé, how he'd tried to mold her into his vision of perfect, how she'd almost let him. Feeling isn't always better. Sometimes it leads you to people who want to change you instead of know you. Is that what happened with whoever you're running from? She'd walked into that one. We're getting very personal for people who agreed not to. We crossed that line the night you taught me to taste again. He turned to face her fully. I'm not good at this, at talking, at sharing, at any of it. But you make me want to try. Is that acceptable? Have you ever met someone who made you want to break all your own rules? Drop a comment and let me know I'm not alone in taking chances on unexpected connections. Ethan. She chose her words carefully. I came here to cook, to hide from my own mess while making money. I didn't expect me either, but here we are. Here we are, she agreed. So what do we do about it? I have no idea. I told you, I don't know how any of this works. Maybe that's okay. Maybe we figure it out as we go. No calculations, no expectations, just see what happens when two careful people decide to be brave. He smiled then, real and unguarded. I can try that, but you should know, I really don't know what I'm doing. In any area that involves intimacy. Good thing I'm an excellent teacher then. The words hung between them, loaded with possibility. She gathered her things, needing space to process what had just shifted. Sophia, he called as she reached the elevator. Thank you for the soup, for listening, for not running when I told you. Thank you for trusting me with it. See you tomorrow? Tomorrow. The elevator doors closed, but the connection remained. Two damaged people who'd found each other over cutting boards and simmering pots. It wasn't how love stories usually started, but then again, the best recipes often came from unexpected combinations. The next evening arrived with spring rain and anticipation. Sophia entered to find Ethan in the kitchen, ingredients laid out, wearing an apron she'd never seen before. I want to cook for you, he announced. Properly. Will you teach me? Ambitious. What did you have in mind? Risotto. I researched it. It requires patience, attention, constant stirring. Things I'm terrible at in life but good at in code. Thought it might translate. She smiled. Risotto is about feeling, not formula. You have to sense when it needs more stock, when the rice is ready. It's intuitive. Then definitely teach me. Intuition is a skill I need to develop. They stood side by side at the stove. She showed him how to toast the rice, when to add wine, how to ladle stock slowly. Their hands brushed as she guided his stirring motion. This time, neither pulled away. The key is patience, she said softly. You can't rush it. Each grain needs time to release its starch, create that creamy texture. It's about being present with the process. Being present, he repeated, but he was looking at her, not the pan. I'm starting to understand the appeal. The risotto came together slowly, perfectly. They tasted, adjusted, tasted again. When it was ready, Ethan plated it with the focus of a surgeon, adding seared scallops she'd coached him through. Beautiful, she said, meaning more than the food. They ate at the island, closer than usual. The conversation flowed easier now, boundaries softening like butter in a warm pan. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. About your engagement. That's definitely personal territory. We established yesterday that we've crossed that line. Fair point. What do you want to know? Why did it end? You don't seem like someone who gives up easily. She twirled her wine glass, gathering words. He fell in love with potential. Not who I was, but who he thought I could become with the right adjustments. Less time in kitchens, more time at country clubs, less passion, more propriety. I spent 2 years trying to fit his mold before realizing I was disappearing. So you left. Ran, more like. Left the ring, the wedding dress, the life he'd planned for us. Came to Seattle because it was far enough away to breathe. Do you regret it? Only that it took me so long to realize love shouldn't require you to become someone else. No, Ethan agreed quietly. It should help you become more yourself. Their eyes met. held. The air between them crackled with possibility. "Is that what this is?" she asked. "Whatever's happening here?" "I don't know. I told you I don't have references for comparison, but I know that for the first time in years I want to share things, show you pieces of myself I've kept locked away. That has to mean something." "It does." She reached for his hand, felt him tremble slightly before interlacing their fingers. "But we go slow, okay? Both of us have been hurt by expectations. Let's just be. No pressure, no timeline, no trying to fit predetermined molds. I can do that. Probably. Maybe." He laughed nervously. "I'm already calculating probabilities. Sorry." "Don't apologize for who you are. Your brain works how it works. That's not something to fix." "My ex-girlfriend—" He stopped. "No, that's not right. The women who tried to date me, they always wanted to fix the calculation thing, said it made me cold, robotic. You're not cold. You're careful, protected. There's warmth underneath. I see it when you talk about your grandmother, when you master a new technique, when you look at me like you're looking now." "How am I looking?" "Like you're seeing something you want, but don't quite believe you can have." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Accurate. I've built entire companies on less nerve than it takes to sit here holding your hand. Good thing courage is like cooking, improves with practice." They cleaned up together, moving in synchronized rhythm. Domestic and intimate without being sexual. Sophia understood his inexperience extended beyond the physical. This too was new territory. The simple pleasure of sharing space with someone who didn't want anything from him but his company. "I should warn you," he said, as she prepared to leave. "I'll probably mess this up, whatever this is. I don't know the rules, the steps, the normal progression. I might move too fast or too slow or sideways entirely. Good thing I'm not looking for normal then." She rose on her toes, kissed his cheek, felt him stop breathing. "That's called affection, by the way. No calculation required, just feeling." "I liked it," he said, wonder in his voice. "The feeling. Then we'll practice more tomorrow." She left him standing in his kitchen, hand pressed to his cheek, looking like he'd discovered a new element. In a way, maybe he had. The element of human connection, more precious than any code he'd ever written. Spring bloomed across Seattle, and with it, something bloomed between Ethan and Sophia. They maintained their evening routine, cooking, eating, cleaning, but now it included teaching moments beyond food. "This is how you hold someone when you want them to feel safe," she said one night, guiding his arms around her as they waited for bread to rise. Not possessive, not distant, just present. He learned quickly, approaching physical affection like a language to master. But unlike his business dealings, he let himself feel instead of just analyze. Sophia watched walls crumble meal by meal, touch by touch. "My therapist says I'm making progress," he told her one evening, chopping vegetables with increasing confidence. Apparently hiring 7 chefs was a subconscious way of practicing vulnerability. "You're in therapy." "Started last month. Figured if I was going to try this, being with someone, I should probably deal with why I've avoided it for 34 years. "And? Turns out losing your parents at 8 and being raised by someone who loved you but was too old and tired to teach you about relationships leaves gaps. Who knew?" She heard the pain under the self-deprecation. "You're doing the work. That matters." "You matter," he corrected. "You make me want to be better, fuller, more like the man my grandmother hoped I'd become instead of the fortress I built." They were making pasta from scratch, her hands guiding his as they kneaded dough. The motion was rhythmic, meditative, deeply sensual, without meaning to be. "Can I tell you something?" Sophia asked. "About why I really answered your ad?" "Please." "I was scared, not just of my ex finding me, but of ever trusting anyone again. Your requirements, no personal interaction, felt safe. I could hide in your kitchen, cook without feeling, earn money to start over. I didn't expect to find another scared person, to find someone who made me want to stop hiding." He dusted flour from her cheek, the gesture tender and unpracticed. "We're quite a pair. The virgin CEO and the runaway bride learning to be human together. When you put it that way, we sound like a bad romance novel. Or a good one. Depends on the ending. What ending do you want? He considered while they rolled pasta through the machine, creating long ribbons of fettuccine. The kind where both people get to be themselves, where no one needs fixing because they were never broken, just unfinished, where love isn't about performance or meeting expectations, but about choosing each other daily. That's a beautiful ending, Ethan. What about you? What ending do you want? She hung the pasta to dry, turned to face him. The kind where I get to cook with someone who appreciates the art of it, where Sunday mornings are for farmers' markets and trying new recipes, where I build a life that's mine but shared, where intimacy isn't about expertise, but exploration. I like your ending too. Maybe they're the same ending. Maybe they are. The pasta water boiled. They finished the meal in comfortable rhythm, plating together, tasting and adjusting like dance partners who'd found their beat. When they sat to eat, it was at the dining table that had become their space, candles lit, not for romance, but for warmth. I want to take you on a date, Ethan announced suddenly, a real one, outside this penthouse. You know that involves other people seeing us together. I know. The board already thinks I'm having a breakdown because I actually smiled in a meeting. Might as well give them something to really talk about. Where would we go? Wherever you want. Restaurant, museum, walk in the park. I googled Seattle date ideas and got approximately 3 million results, which frankly seems excessive. She laughed. How about we start simple? Coffee and the farmer's market Saturday morning? Perfect, I mean probably. I've never been to a farmer's market. Ethan Winters, have you been living in Seattle for 5 years without visiting Pike Place on a Saturday? I have people who shop for me. Not anymore, you don't. Saturday, 9 a.m. Wear comfortable shoes. I own comfortable shoes? We'll work on that too. They finished dinner, cleaned up, fell into the goodbye ritual that had evolved, a hug that lasted exactly as long as it needed to, a kiss on the cheek that lingered a breath longer each night. Sophia, he called as she reached the elevator. What if I'm bad at it, the date thing? Impossible. You've been dating me in this kitchen for 2 months. Saturday's just a change of venue. The elevator closed on his surprised smile. She was right, of course. Every evening had been a date, building intimacy through shared meals and slowly dissolving boundaries. The only difference would be witnesses to what was blooming between them. Saturday arrived bright and clear, Seattle showing off with blue skies and Mount Rainier visible in the distance. Sophia found Ethan waiting outside his building, looking endearingly nervous in jeans and a sweater she'd never seen before. You went shopping, she observed. Martin helped. Apparently my weekend wardrobe was, and I quote, aggressively corporate. I own sneakers now. They're surprisingly comfortable. You look good, relaxed, happy. Terrified, he corrected, but he was smiling. I've faced hostile takeovers with less anxiety. Come on, scary CEO. Let's go touch vegetables and smell flowers like normal people. She took his hand, felt him squeeze back. Such a simple gesture, but she saw how it grounded him. They walked through the morning streets, Ethan asking questions about everything. The architecture, the coffee shops, the people. Like he was seeing his city for the first time. Pike Place Market on Saturday morning was chaos incarnate. Colors, sounds, crowds, vendors calling out deals. Ethan tensed, overwhelmed by the sensory assault. Too much? Sophia asked. No, just a lot. I usually experience the world through screens and reports. This is very immediate. That's the point. Come on, let's start with coffee. She guided him to her favorite stall, where the barista greeted her by name. Ethan watched the interaction with fascination. You're a regular here. Every Saturday since I moved to Seattle, ritual matters even for us runners. They got their drinks, cortado for her, black coffee for him until she made him try hers and he discovered he actually liked milk in coffee, and wandered the market. Sophia introduced him to her favorite vendors, watched him slowly relax as he realized no one cared that he was worth billions. Here, he was just another guy buying flowers with his girlfriend. Girlfriend. The word sat strange but warming in her mind. "Try this," she said, offering him a sample of honey from a local beekeeper. He did, eyes widening. "That's incredible. Complex, like wine, but sweeter. Everything's better when you know where it comes from. The bees live on a lavender farm outside the city. You can taste it in the honey." They bought 3 jars along with bread, cheese, fruit that Sophia selected by smell and feel. Ethan carried the bags, looking proud of this simple domestic accomplishment. "I've never done this," he admitted as they watched fishmongers throw salmon. "Shopping for food with someone. My grandmother used to take me to the grocery store, but that was different. Functional. This is joyful?" "Yes, exactly. Food as celebration, not just sustenance. That's what you missed all those years eating alone. Food is community, connection. Even when you're just buying tomatoes, you're participating in something bigger." They found a bench overlooking the water, sharing pastries from a French bakery. Ethan had powdered sugar on his nose. Sophia didn't tell him, just smiled at how human he looked. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "About physical things?" "That's a broad category." "I know. He set down his croissant, turned to face her. "I want to kiss you. Properly. But I don't know if it's too soon or too public, or if there's some protocol I'm missing." "Ethan, there's no protocol for feelings. You want to kiss me?" "Very much. Have wanted to for weeks, but what if I'm terrible at it? What if—" She silenced him by leaning in, pressing her lips to his. Soft, sweet, tasting of coffee and possibility. He froze for a heartbeat, then responded, one hand coming up to cup her cheek with trembling gentleness. When they parted, his eyes were wide with wonder. "Oh," he breathed, "that's why people write songs about it. You weren't terrible at it. Really? Really want to practice more?" He did. They sat on that bench, kissing like teenagers, oblivious to the world around them. When they finally came up for air, Ethan looked dazed in the best way. "I'm 34 years old and just had my first real kiss on a public bench. How do you feel about that? Like I've been wasting time. Like I want to make up for it. Like maybe being a late bloomer means appreciating things more." "All good feelings." She stood, pulled him up. "Come on, let's go cook our market finds." They spent the afternoon in his kitchen, preparing a feast from their purchases. Ethan had progressed enough to handle prep work, while Sophia managed the stove. They moved together easily now, handing off tasks, tasting and adjusting, comfortable in shared space. "This is what I imagined," he said suddenly, julienning carrots with careful precision. "When I hired all those chefs, I wasn't really looking for someone to cook for me. I was looking for this, someone to cook with. You just didn't know how to ask for it. Story of my life. Building elaborate systems to get simple things because asking directly required vulnerability I didn't have. You have it now. Because you taught me it was safe to want things, to admit I was hungry for more than food." They ate on the balcony, Seattle spread before them like a promise. The meal was simple but perfect, elevated by being shared. As the sun set, painting the sky in pastels, Ethan reached for her hand. "I want to tell you something, but I don't want to scare you." "Tell me." "I'm falling in love with you. I know it's fast. I know I don't have experience to compare it to, but I recognize the feeling from every book I've read, every movie I analyzed, trying to understand human connection. This is that, isn't it? Love." Sophia's heart contracted. "Ethan." "You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know, needed to say it out loud to someone who wouldn't run or try to monetize it or tell me I'm doing it wrong." "You're not doing it wrong." She squeezed his hand. "You're doing it exactly right, and I'm falling too. Differently than before. Deeper, truer. Based on who we are, not who we might become." "So what happens now?" "Now we keep falling, keep cooking, keep teaching each other, see where it leads." "I like that plan. Very organic. No spreadsheets required." They cleared the dishes together, washing and drying in rhythm. When Sophia turned to hang up the dish towel, she found Ethan watching her with an expression she was learning to read, desire mixed with uncertainty. "What is it?" she asked gently. "I want more, but I don't know how to initiate or what's appropriate, or if you even want—" "I want," she assured him. "But we go at your pace. There's no rush, no performance required. Just us figuring it out together." "What if I disappoint you?" "Impossible. You know why? Because you're present. You care about my experience as much as yours. That already makes you better than most people with decades of practice." "How do we start?" "Same way we started cooking together. One step at a time, lots of communication, adjusting as we go." She took his hand, led him to the couch. "Tonight, let's just be close. No pressure for more. Just get comfortable with wanting." They curled together on the couch, Ethan tentative at first, then relaxing as he realized there truly was no expectation beyond connection. Sophia ran her fingers through his hair, felt him melt against her. "This is nice," he murmured. "Just being held." "When's the last time someone just held you?" "My grandmother, the night before she died, told me I was going to do great things, but not to forget the small ones." His voice roughened. "I forgot anyway." "You're remembering now. That's what matters." They stayed like that as darkness fell over the city, two people learning that intimacy began not with grand gestures, but with the courage to be vulnerable, to admit hunger, to feed each other in all the ways that mattered. If you've ever found love in an unexpected place with someone who challenged everything you thought you knew about yourself, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Sometimes the best recipes come from combining ingredients that shouldn't work but do. Summer arrived with its long Seattle days, and with it, a deepening of what had grown between them. Ethan's education expanded beyond cooking to include all forms of intimacy, emotional, physical, the spaces between. "I signed us up for a couples cooking class," he announced one evening, looking simultaneously proud and terrified. "You did?" "My therapist suggested it. Something about practicing vulnerability in public settings. Plus, I thought it might be fun. Do normal couple things." "We're not exactly a normal couple." "No," he agreed, pulling her close. "We're better. We're intentional." The class was at a local culinary school, 6 couples learning to make Thai food. Ethan started stiff, overwhelmed by the social aspect, but Sophia watched him slowly relax as cooking became the focus. His knife skills were excellent now, his palate developing. When the instructor complimented his pad thai, he beamed like a child. "You did it," Sophia whispered as they ate their creations. "Did what?" "Went from someone who ate alone, standing over the sink, to someone taking couples cooking classes. That's a journey." I had an excellent guide. After class, they walked through the warm evening, hands linked, comfortable with silence and speech equally. "Can we talk about sex?" Ethan asked suddenly, then immediately flushed. "Sorry, that was abrupt." "It's okay. What about it?" "My therapist says I'm overthinking it, building it up into this insurmountable thing. But I don't know how not to overthink. It's what I do." "What specifically worries you?" He was quiet for a block, gathering words. "That 34 years of inexperience can't be overcome, that you'll be disappointed, that I'll be so focused on doing it right, I'll forget to be present." "Can I tell you a secret?" Everyone's worried about those things. Experience doesn't eliminate the vulnerability of being naked with someone, literally and figuratively. "But you know what you're doing." "I know what worked with other people. That doesn't mean I know what works with us. We'll learn together, just like cooking. I like when you compare things to cooking. Makes them less scary. Sex is like making a soufflé. Seems intimidating, people make a huge deal about technique, but really it's about patience, attention, and not overthinking the process." He laughed. "Did you just compare my virginity to a soufflé? Too much?" "No, perfect. Takes the pressure off somehow." They reached his building, rode up in the elevator that had carried them through so many stages of connection. In the penthouse, Sophia made tea while Ethan sat at the island, watching her with soft eyes. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know I've said it before, but I want you to know it's not just words. It's this feeling like my code finally compiled correctly. Like all the bugs have been fixed and the program is running smooth. Did you just compare love to debugging? Too much?" "No. Perfect. Very you. She brought the tea over, sat beside him. I love you too, for teaching me that starting over doesn't mean settling for less, for showing me that inexperience can be a gift. You approach everything with such wonder. Even the scary things, especially those. You make me see the world fresh. They drank their tea, the comfortable quiet of two people who'd learned each other's rhythms. When Ethan spoke again, his voice was steady. I want to try, being together, fully. But I need you to know it might be awkward or require stops and starts or... Ethan. She set down her mug, took his face in her hands. It's not a performance, it's a conversation. We'll talk, adjust, laugh when things don't go as planned. The goal isn't perfection, it's connection. When? When you're ready. Could be tonight, could be next month. Your timeline, remember? What if I'm ready now, theoretically? Then we go slow, very slow, and you tell me if anything feels wrong or too fast or not what you want. Okay. He stood, offered her his hand. Show me how to love you properly. You already do. This is just another way to express it. She led him to his bedroom, a space she'd only glimpsed before. Like everything else in the penthouse, it was beautiful, but impersonal. They'd change that, she thought. Make it theirs. What followed wasn't the stuff of movies, no sweeping passion or instinctive expertise. Instead, it was tender, fumbling at times, punctuated with soft laughter and constant check-ins. Ethan approached her body like a recipe to be savored, taking his time, learning what made her gasp, what made her smile. When anxiety crept in, she guided him back to presence with touch and words. You're doing perfect, she whispered as he traced her collarbone with shaking fingers. Just feel, don't think. You're beautiful, he said with wonder. I knew that intellectually, but seeing you, being allowed to touch, it's overwhelming. Good. Overwhelming. They moved together slowly, Sophia letting him set the pace, offering encouragement without pressure. When they finally joined, Ethan's eyes filled with tears. Are you okay? She asked, stilling. Yes. God, yes, I didn't know it could feel like this, like coming home. That's exactly what it is. Coming home to each other. After they lay tangled together, Ethan's head on her chest, listening to her heartbeat. Sophia stroked his hair, feeling him process this new intimacy. Was it okay? He asked, vulnerability naked in his voice. It was perfect. You were present, attentive, caring. That's all that matters. I want to do better. Learn what you like, what works. Hey, she tilted his chin up. This isn't a skill to master. It's a language we're creating together. It'll evolve as we do. I like that, our own language. Exactly. And Ethan, thank you. For what? For trusting me with all your firsts, for letting me be part of your journey, for reminding me that love is worth being vulnerable for. He kissed her, more confident now, but still tender. Thank you for seeing me. Not the CEO, not the virgin, not the project. Just me. Just you is more than enough. They made love again as dawn painted the sky, slower this time, Ethan already learning her rhythms. When they finally emerged from the bedroom, rumpled and glowing, the kitchen called. Breakfast, Sophia suggested, together, always together. They cooked eggs and bacon, bumping hips at the stove, stealing kisses between flipping pancakes. The penthouse that had once been a sterile fortress now hummed with life, with love, with the simple pleasure of two people choosing each other daily. I have a proposal, Ethan said over breakfast. Another one? Move in with me, officially. Bring your spices and your warmth and your ability to make everything taste better. Let's stop pretending you don't already live here in all the ways that matter. That's a big step. We've taken all our steps together so far. Why stop now? She looked around the kitchen where she'd taught him to taste again, where he'd taught her to trust again, where they'd built something beautiful from scratch, ingredient by ingredient. Okay, she said, but I'm redecorating. This place needs color, warmth, evidence that humans actually live here. Deal. Design our home however you want. Just make sure there's always space for us to cook together." "Always," she promised. 1 year later, the penthouse was unrecognizable. Sophia had transformed it from a magazine spread into a home. Warm colors, soft textures, photos of their adventures, shelves full of cookbooks and the novels Ethan was finally reading for pleasure. The kitchen remained the heart, but now it showed evidence of life. Knife marks on the cutting boards, a well-seasoned cast-iron collection, herbs growing in the window. They cooked together every evening, the ritual sacred even as their lives expanded. "I have news," Sophia announced one evening, as they prepped dinner, a recreation of the first meal she'd cooked for him, elevated by their combined skills. "Good news?" Ethan asked, pausing his knife work. "I think so. Elena offered me a partnership in her restaurant group, head of culinary development, creating menus, training chefs, building the kind of kitchens that nourish both staff and guests." "Sophia, that's incredible." He swept her into a hug, spinning her around. "When do you start?" "That's the thing. It would mean traveling, visiting the different locations, sometimes for weeks at a time. I wanted to discuss it with you first." "Why?" "This is your dream job." "Because we're partners. Decisions affect both of us now." He set her down, cupped her face. "Do you remember what you told me about love? That it shouldn't make you smaller. This job will make you bigger, fuller. Of course you should take it. What about us, our routine? We'll adapt. Maybe I'll travel with you sometimes. I can work from anywhere. Maybe we'll appreciate our evenings more when they're not guaranteed. But Sophia, I won't be the reason you dim your light. Not ever." She kissed him deeply, tasting love and support, and the man he'd become. "How did I get so lucky?" "Luck had nothing to do with it. We chose each other. Keep choosing each other." They finished cooking, plating with the precision of a restaurant kitchen, but the love of a home. As they ate, Ethan cleared his throat. "Speaking of news, I have some too. I'm starting a foundation, teaching coding to kids who've lost parents, giving them skills and stability like my grandmother gave me, but with better emotional support than I had." "Ethan, that's beautiful. I want to name it after her. The Dorothy Winters Foundation for Digital Futures. What do you think?" "I think she'd be so proud of who you've become." "We've become," he corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. Which brings me to something else." He stood, walked to a drawer, pulled out a small box. Sophia's breath caught. "Before you panic," he said quickly, "this isn't what you think. Not yet. I know you need time after your last engagement, and I respect that. This is a promise." He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band, inscribed with a single word. "Nourish." "It's perfect," she whispered. "It's a promise that I'll keep feeding our love, keep growing with you, keep choosing you daily. And when you're ready, if you're ever ready, we'll make it official. But until then, this is my commitment, to us, to our kitchen, to the life we've built from scratch." She held out her right hand, let him slide the ring on. "I love you, Ethan Winters, for seeing me, feeding me, teaching me that love can be safe and wild at the same time. I love you, Sophia Rodriguez, for teaching me to taste, to feel, to be human in all the messy, beautiful ways." They stood in their kitchen, holding each other as the city sparkled beyond the windows. Two people who'd started with a simple transaction, cooking for money, and ended with a feast of connection neither had dared imagine. "Hey," Sophia said suddenly, "want to make soufflé? Now? Why?" "Because we never did. After that whole comparison about sex and soufflés, we should probably master both." He laughed, bright and free. "You're right. Let's do it. Together." They pulled out ingredients, working in perfect synchronization. The soufflé rose golden and proud, like their love. Delicate but stronger than it looked, worth the patience it required. As they fed each other bites of airy perfection, Ethan marveled at the journey. From a man who couldn't taste his food, to someone who savored every flavor life offered. From isolation to connection, from fear to love. all because one chef refused to let him eat alone. "Thank you," he said suddenly, "for the soufflé, for everything, for answering that ridiculous ad, for seeing past the walls, for teaching me that nourishment comes in many forms. Thank you for letting me, for being brave enough to learn, for showing me that starting over can lead somewhere better than where you began." They cleaned up together, their nightly ritual now comfortable as breathing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, Sophia's new job, Ethan's foundation, the constant work of choosing each other. But tonight, they were simply two people who'd found home in each other's hearts and kitchens. The virgin millionaire had learned to perform, not in the way he'd feared, but in all the ways that mattered, and the chef who'd come to cook had stayed to feast on a love neither had known they were hungry for. In the end, the best recipes were always about more than ingredients. They were about the hands that prepared them, the hearts that shared them, and the courage to believe that everyone deserved to be nourished, especially those who'd forgotten how to feed themselves. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more tales of unexpected love and second chances. Remember, it's never too late to learn how to taste life fully. And sometimes the most profound connections begin not with grand gestures, but with someone simply making sure you eat well. Share this story with someone who needs reminding that love isn't about performance. It's about presence. That inexperience can be a gift, that the right person will teach you to savor every moment, not rush through to some imagined finish line.